Honda has dominated the motorcycle world for decades. Most reliable brand on the planet, most units sold, most trusted name in the industry. That reputation wasn't built overnight, it was earned through decades of engineering consistency that no other manufacturer has matched. But something just changed, quietly, systematically, across multiple categories and multiple price points. Yamaha started doing something that Honda didn't see coming. They stopped trying to match Honda. They started making Honda irrelevant. And the way they did it has nothing to do with raw power or engineering specs. By the end of this video, you'll see exactly where Honda is losing ground and why the gap is growing faster than anyone expected. Because this isn't just a rivalry anymore, this is a shift. To understand what's happening between these two brands right now, you have to understand what each of them has always stood for. Honda built its reputation on one word: reliability. Buy a Honda and it starts every time. It runs for 100,000 miles without drama. It holds its resale value. It costs less to maintain. For a massive portion of the motorcycle market, those qualities aren't just appealing, they're the entire decision. Honda understood that rider, built for that rider, and dominated the market because of it. Yamaha took a different approach. Where Honda optimized for dependability, Yamaha optimized for feeling. The way the throttle responds, the way the chassis communicates through a corner, the way the engine note changes under acceleration. Yamaha has always believed that a motorcycle isn't just transportation, it's an experience. And for years, that philosophy produced great bikes that still finished second in sales because Honda's reliability argument was simply too strong for most buyers to ignore. That calculation is changing. A new generation of riders is entering the market. Riders who grew up watching MotoGP, who follow motorcycle content online, who care deeply about how a bike makes them feel, and not just whether it'll start on a cold morning. For that rider, Yamaha's philosophy isn't a consolation prize, it's the main event. And Honda, for the first time in a long time, doesn't have a clear answer.
Let's start with number 6, and already the pattern is visible. The Yamaha R7 entered a market that already had competent middleweight sport bikes, and it immediately stood out, not because of raw power, but because of how deliberately it was designed around the rider's experience. Around 73 horsepower from a parallel twin engine. That number isn't going to shock anyone, but horsepower was never the point. Yamaha engineered the R7 to be as close to a genuine supersport experience as possible at an accessible price, pulling design and chassis philosophy directly from their R-Series Superbike lineup and filtering it down into a bike that a newer rider could actually learn on without being overwhelmed. What the R7 does particularly well is chassis feedback, the way it communicates road surface, cornering forces, and tire behavior back to the rider through the handlebars and foot pegs. A motorcycle that tells you what it's doing, that keeps you informed about the relationship between your inputs and the bike's response, is a motorcycle that builds rider skill and confidence simultaneously. The R7 educates as it performs. Riders who spend serious time on it come away better at riding motorcycles, not just better at riding the R7. That quality is harder to engineer than horsepower and harder to advertise than top speed, but experienced riders recognize it immediately. The R7 also carries something that matters enormously in today's market: visual identity. It looks like a proper sport bike. The bodywork references the R1 and R6 lineage unmistakably. For a rider stepping up from a smaller machine, climbing onto an R7 feels like a genuine arrival, not a stepping stone, not a compromise. Now look at Honda's answer, the CBR 650R. 4 cylinders, more power, a higher revving engine with a sound that builds toward its peak RPM in a way that parallel twins simply can't replicate. On paper, the CBR 650R is the stronger motorcycle, more sophisticated, more powerful, more refined. Honda built it to appeal to riders who want a genuine inline-4 experience without committing to a full-liter superbike. And as a technical exercise, it succeeds completely. But here's what Honda miscalculated. The CBR 650R's refinement creates distance. The four-cylinder, smooth and composed as it is, delivers power in a way that feels more removed from the rider, more mechanical, less immediate, less connected to the physical act of riding. And this is just the beginning of a much bigger problem for Honda.
Number 5. This is where Yamaha stops being competitive and starts being aggressive. The MT-09 runs a 900cc three-cylinder engine, and that configuration is the entire story. Three cylinders occupy a specific sonic and mechanical space that neither parallel twins nor inline fours can replicate. The power delivery has a torque character that arrives low in the RPM range and builds with an urgency that genuinely surprises riders the first time they experience it. Every throttle input on the MT-09 feels like a direct conversation between the rider and the engine. Immediate, responsive, slightly unpredictable in a way that keeps you engaged rather than unsettled. This bike is alive in a way that very few street motorcycles manage to achieve. Yamaha's CP3 engine was engineered specifically to produce a power delivery that feels exciting across the entire RPM range, not just at the top end. Most four-cylinder engines build toward a power peak that rewards high-rev riding but feels flat at everyday road speeds. The MT-09 is the opposite. It pulls hard from low RPM, builds aggressively through the mid-range, and arrives at its peak with a ferocity that makes the rider instinctively grin. The chassis matches the engine's personality completely. Yamaha set up the MT-09 to be playful, light enough to change direction on a thought, responsive enough to reward aggressive inputs without punishing conservative ones. Track riders love it because it communicates so clearly. City riders love it because it makes everyday commutes feel like something worth doing. The MT-09 doesn't excel in one environment, it performs meaningfully in almost all of them.
Now compare that to Honda's CB650R. Smooth, controlled, impeccably finished, the CB650R is a genuinely beautiful motorcycle. Honda's Neo Sports Cafe design language gives it a visual character that's understated and premium in equal measure. The inline-4 engine runs quietly, pulls cleanly, and delivers its power with a composure that makes the bike feel almost effortless at normal road speeds. For a large portion of riders, that composure is exactly what they want. A motorcycle that cooperates rather than challenges. But cooperation has a cost. The CB650R's defining characteristic, its smoothness, its refinement, its willingness to absorb every road input and present the rider with a calm, managed experience, is precisely what makes it feel flat next to the MT-09. Where the Yamaha makes every ride feel like an event, the Honda makes every ride feel like a commute. Both are valid, both have a market, but the riders choosing between these two right now are overwhelmingly picking the MT-09 because smooth is forgettable, alive is not. But Yamaha didn't just win on performance, they started winning on something much harder to compete with: value. Number 4. And this one explains more about Yamaha's strategy than any other bike on this list. The MT-07 is everywhere. Dealerships, riding schools, track days, commuter lanes, canyon roads. It exists in every corner of the motorcycle world simultaneously, and it belongs in all of them. The reason is straightforward. Yamaha built a motorcycle that delivers genuine excitement at a price point that almost anyone can reach. Around 75 horsepower from a 700cc parallel twin, a chassis weighing just over 400 pounds, and ergonomics that work for shorter riders, taller riders, newer riders, and experienced riders without asking anyone to compromise significantly. What makes the MT-07 genuinely impressive is that its accessibility never comes at the expense of engagement. This is the trap that affordable motorcycles almost always fall into. They make the bike easier to ride by making it less interesting to ride. The MT-07 avoids that completely. The parallel twin engine has genuine personality, a low RPM torque character that makes urban riding punchy and entertaining, and a top-end pull that rewards riders who push it. The chassis wants to be thrown around, wants direction changes, wants corner entries that are slightly too fast. Within reason, it rewards aggression. The MT-07 also represents something strategically important for Yamaha. It's the entry point to the brand for an enormous number of riders, and entry points create loyalty. A rider who buys an MT-07 as their first real motorcycle, who falls in love with how it rides, who builds confidence and skill on its chassis, is a rider who looks at the MT-09 and the MT-10 as natural next steps. Yamaha built a pipeline, and it starts right here.
Now Honda's answer at this level, the CB500F. Reliable, predictable, perfectly competent. The CB500F does everything it promises. Starts reliably, runs smoothly, handles without drama, and costs a reasonable amount to insure and maintain. For a first-time rider whose primary concern is getting comfortable on two wheels without financial or mechanical stress, the CB500F makes a legitimate case. Honda's reputation alone carries real weight when you're new to motorcycling. But here's the issue, and it's a significant one. The CB500F doesn't make you feel anything. It's a motorcycle that exists to function, and it functions well, but function without feeling is a difficult sell when Yamaha is offering the MT-07 at a similar price point. Side by side, the choice comes down to this: do you want a motorcycle you trust, or a motorcycle you love? Honda answered that question one way, Yamaha answered it differently, and increasingly buyers are choosing love, especially younger buyers who've grown up in a world where experience matters as much as reliability. And that difference between trust and love becomes impossible to ignore at the top of the lineup. Number 3, and now we're in serious territory. The Yamaha R1 is not just a superbike, it's a statement about what Yamaha believes a motorcycle can be. The cross-plane inline-4 engine, developed in direct parallel with Yamaha's MotoGP program, produces around 200 horsepower with a power delivery character that no other four-cylinder engine replicates. The cross-plane crankshaft fires its cylinders in an irregular interval that produces torque pulses mimicking a V4, giving the engine a physical, tactile quality at high RPM that riders describe as addictive. It doesn't just make power, it communicates power. Every revolution tells you something about what the engine is doing and what the rear tire is managing. The electronics package on the R1 reflects its MotoGP heritage directly. A 6-axis IMU monitors chassis movement continuously, feeding data to traction control, slide control, launch control, and lift control systems developed using real racing data. These aren't systems designed to prevent exciting riding. They're systems designed to allow more exciting riding by expanding the window within which the rider can operate safely. The R1 lets you get closer to the limit than most superbikes because it's better at telling you where the limit actually is. That's not a safety net, that's a tool. Visually and conceptually, the R1 carries the full weight of Yamaha's racing identity. Every design element references the track. Every component choice prioritizes performance. Owning an R1 communicates something specific about the rider, not just that they ride fast, but that they take the craft of riding seriously. The R1 doesn't just perform at the top of its category, it defines what the top of its category looks and feels like.
Now Honda's CBR1000RR. Still powerful, still capable, still a legitimate superbike by any objective measure. The CBR1000RR makes competitive power, runs sophisticated electronics, and carries Honda's racing pedigree through its HRC Fireblade heritage. On a racetrack, in the hands of a skilled rider, it's genuinely fast. The chassis is stable and confidence-inspiring, the braking is strong, the power delivery is predictable and manageable even at extreme speeds. For a rider who values consistency above all else, the CBR1000RR is actually the preferable machine. But at this level of the market, preferable for a certain type of rider isn't enough. The R1's engine character, its racing DNA, its electronics philosophy, all of it creates an emotional response that the CBR1000RR simply doesn't match. The Fireblade feels reserved, where the R1 feels committed. It feels refined, where the R1 feels raw. At the superbike level, where buyers are spending serious money for a specific kind of extreme experience, playing it safe is the wrong move. Riders notice, and they choose accordingly. And then Yamaha did something Honda genuinely wasn't prepared for. Number 2, and this is where Yamaha's strategy becomes impossible to ignore. The Yamaha R9 fills a gap that has existed in the sport bike market for years, the space between accessible middleweights and full-liter superbikes. It's a category riders have been asking for openly, a machine with genuine performance credentials, a chassis and engine combination that takes riding seriously, but without the financial and physical commitment that a 200-horsepower superbike demands. The R9 answers that request directly. Real sport bike performance, real track capability. A chassis that communicates with the same clarity as the R1, at a price point and power level that a much wider range of riders can actually use effectively. What makes the R9 strategically significant isn't just its performance, it's what it represents about Yamaha's understanding of their market. They identified a rider who existed but wasn't being served, someone who'd outgrown the MT-07 or the R7, who wanted more without jumping straight to a leader-class machine, who was ready to invest more but needed a logical next step. The R9 also demonstrates something about Yamaha's product planning that Honda hasn't matched, the willingness to create new categories rather than just compete in existing ones. Honda follows markets, Yamaha shapes them. The R9 didn't exist because there was an obvious slot for it. It exists because Yamaha decided to create that slot. And the response from the riding community confirmed that the slot was always there. Riders wanted this bike, they just didn't know it had a name yet.
And here's Honda's problem. They don't have an answer. There is no Honda motorcycle that competes with the R9 at its price point and performance level. The CBR 650R sits below it. The CBR 1000RR sits above it. The space in between, the exact space where the R9 lives and where a significant portion of serious sport riders want to be, belongs entirely to Yamaha. Honda, a company with more engineering resources than almost any other manufacturer on the planet, left that gap open, and Yamaha walked right through it. That absence matters more than any spec comparison on this list, because it's not about one motorcycle being better than another. It's about one brand understanding where the market is going and positioning themselves to lead it, while the other brand watches from a category it no longer fully owns. The gap isn't just growing, it's becoming structural. And all of this leads to one final shift, the one that summarizes everything. Number 1, the bike that brings everything together. The Yamaha MT-10 takes the R1's engine, that cross-plane inline 4, that MotoGP-derived power plant, strips away the bodywork, raises the handlebars, and delivers it all in a naked format that makes no apologies. Over 160 horsepower, no fairings to soften the experience, no windscreen to create distance, just the engine, the chassis, the road, and the rider. Everything is immediate, everything is direct, everything is felt rather than managed. The MT-10 doesn't interpret the road for you, it presents it, unfiltered, uncompromised, completely honest. The character difference between the MT-10 and a comparable Honda isn't subtle, it's philosophical. This bike was built around a specific emotional target, the feeling of total, unmediated connection between rider and machine. Yamaha's engineers made decisions throughout the entire development process that prioritized that feeling over comfort, over refinement, over the kind of broad market accessibility that sells more units in the short term. They chose intensity, and the riders the MT-10 was designed for respond to that choice with the kind of loyalty that no marketing campaign can manufacture. These aren't customers, they're advocates. What the MT-10 represents in the context of this entire comparison is Yamaha's confidence in their own identity. They know what they build, they know who they build it for, and they've stopped trying to appeal to riders who want something different, because chasing Honda's customer means abandoning your own. The MT-10 is Yamaha saying clearly and without apology, this is what we are, this is what we believe motorcycles should feel like. If that's what you want, we built it for you.
Now, Honda's CB1000R. And it deserves genuine credit. The CB1000R is a beautiful motorcycle. Honda's Neo Sports Cafe design language gives it a visual identity that's genuinely distinctive. understated where the MT-10 is aggressive, premium where the Yamaha is raw. The inline-4 engine produces smooth, capable power. The chassis handles competently across a wide range of riding conditions. The electronics are modern and effective. As a complete package, the CB1000R represents Honda engineering at a high level, sophisticated, refined, thoroughly considered. But it doesn't hit the same, not in the way that matters when a rider is standing in a dealership making a decision. The CB1000R is a motorcycle you respect. The MT-10 is a motorcycle you want. Those are different things, and in today's market, want wins. Honda built something excellent. Yamaha built something irresistible. The distinction is subtle in a spec sheet. In a showroom, it's the entire conversation. Yamaha didn't destroy Honda overnight. Honda still sells more motorcycles. Honda still holds more market share. Honda's reliability reputation is still one of the most powerful forces in the industry. But Yamaha did something more dangerous than winning on numbers. They changed what riders expect from a motorcycle. They raised the standard for what engagement feels like, what connection feels like, what it means for a machine to actually take the person riding it seriously. And once riders experience that standard, once they know what's possible, it becomes very difficult to go back to something that doesn't meet it. Honda will respond, they always do. They have the engineering talent, the resources, and the competitive instinct to close every gap Yamaha has opened. The question is whether they respond fast enough and whether they're willing to challenge their own philosophy to do it. So here's where it lands. Are you still in the Honda camp, trusting the reputation, respecting the reliability? Or has Yamaha already changed the way you think about what a motorcycle should feel like? Drop your answer in the comments, because this debate is just getting started.